Hello, internet universe. First of all, this is what I look like after work. We don't ask questions about that. It was one of those days, right? So, my unkempt hair, my unshaven beard, my American wife beater, the fact that I have one sock on and no, I'm not gonna prove it, and it's freezing at this window. Now, you'll see before me, this is not Call of Duty Black Ops. And that's because we're making a listen video where I'm going to try to not yell because then all my animals are going to freak out and then my girlfriend's going to get scared and then my dad's going to think that I'm like dying. So we're going to not do that. Maybe. But I had this wrote up and I still might whine about it on Facebook or something. That's what it was going to go on. But we'll see where that goes. So, I might get onto some tangents. Unlike the listen video where I just had like bullet points, I have an actual wrote up thing because, like I said, it was going to go on the internet. So no better way to get started than to go right into the work. So I wrote this literally as I was sitting there. For the record, I broke out my laptop and I'm just typing away. So I'm gonna read this to the best of my ability with clarity and read it verbatim. And especially in the beginning, like every time I got into this document, I was mad and I had self-hatred and I had hatred and so you're gonna see a lot of that here. Especially if you're reading ahead already, because there's nothing to look at in this camera. But let me get my whistle wet and then I'm gonna start reading. I'm gonna drink unlicensed green drink. Okay, I'm done with unlicensed green drink. So, I still can't believe I work at this awful job. It's like I enjoy hating myself. I make minimum wage with the worst bosses in my life. I really thought the McDonald's was bad. It turns out that it only gets worse. The world as it is a nasty, disgusting, horrid world. The economy is ruined, politics are ruined, the world is crumbling around us, and I work at an unnamed establishment where you spend your days working for someone with a stick where the sun doesn't shine, with a stick up their ass. And you can't say anything about it because you should be grateful to have a job. Yeah, it's a job. It's definitely not a career, especially when you spend your days in the shadow of those who are better than you. My brother works with me. He's an incredible person. He's come so far from the lowest that he's had. And he has incredible willpower to sit there and slog through that ignorant job. But he does have the side that the store manager would literally shoot himself if it meant having my brother at the store. I spent a long time in my childhood dealing with the fact that they were always right because they were older than me or whatever it was. I mean, you can read the highlighted portion yourself. It's hard to read some of this stuff when I'm not in like that mood, especially towards them. But it reminds me of my childhood being in the shadow of my brothers who are better and more important than me. I spent my younger years losing every argument, losing every fight, losing every game because I was the youngest, so I must be ignorant and useless. I was good at nothing, and as far as most are concerned, I still am nothing in the shadow of my brothers. In this job, my worth is measured by the fact that I can use a handheld touchscreen tablet and my inept, brain-dead store manager can't. It's a miracle he knows how to work the computers that are already in the store, but the interface on those are from back when he was a kid, so I get it. Imagine being the kind of boss to get paid $60K plus salary to sit in your cushy air-conditioned office and occasionally bark orders at your technicians. But now, what if you had the initiative to help your techs and do work for them and help them out? That's my wonderful store manager. In my dreams, maybe. Any attempts to help are overshadowed by a severe lack of manners and respect. The fact that his brain is so fried he spends half his time being so unbelievably wrong that it fries the brains of those around him. An absolute man-child with no masculinity, no mental capacity, and it's honestly insane that a multi-million-dollar corporation would let an ex-cook and convicted felon run a store and make big-dollar decisions. The fact that this mentally handicapped person can choose who gets hired and fired, what customers get to work for or not, is insanity. The The number of customers I have personally bore witness to that have cars fail inspections or aren't up to MAP standards, which is the Motorist Assistance Program, and Mr. Manager lets them walk right through because he doesn't want to do the paperwork or doesn't feel like doing an oil pan today, is appalling. Now, before we continue, I'll elaborate on a couple of things. This is a good time. First of all, where is it down here? Yeah, the part where I say if you had the initiative to help your tax and, sit in your office and bark orders, it was crazy because he was the mix of those two, which would be great, but it was the worst of both and the best of neither. So he would sit in his office when we didn't want him to, and he would come out and help when we didn't want him to, and he would help in the way that we didn't want him to, and he would sit out in the office and do things we didn't want him to do. It was crazy how perfect he was at doing that. And those are just some examples, but I mean, he's had so many things done, it's crazy. And he just won't do certain work, and it literally, beats me. But let's keep going. Let alone passing his drug dealer's truck, friends, and family to keep his brownie points. He's nothing more than a puppy or a child, throwing fits and begging for attention. Zero backbone for anyone. I saw more backbone out of the assistant manager that was fired for calling out the store manager's bullshit than the store manager himself. There's more backbone in the air my brother breathes in that shop than the manager has ever even imagined having. I cannot imagine why the store goes through employees when the store manager can't be a decent human being for more than 5 hours a week. There's a reason no one wants to work there or be a customer there. Despite that, me and my brother have poured blood, sweat, and tears into doing our job, the best we can to fight for our checks and fight for our families, while our brain-dead boss makes thousands a week for being a rude man-child and doing nothing for it. God forbid I get started on the district manager. Well, actually, that's exactly what I'm going to do. My district manager, who is technically responsible for anything going on at any stores with my name and relevant brands that they own, is supposed to make weekly visits to each shop around the district. When I started, I never even met the district manager, which you're supposed to when you get hired for an interview, and it took 6 months for me and him to make first contact when he did the annual inspection of my shop, to which he also holds his weekly meeting in whichever store he's at the time, in a back room made just for higher-ups, not for us, not for technicians, not for care specialists, or anything of that sort. Speaking of that annual inspection, he is certified to put inspection stickers on his own lift certifying that they are up to par with regulations. That can't be a smart idea because that system relies on honesty and honor, something very uncommon in a Monroe establishment. So, our first bay uses a system that relies on cylinders that are placed on the end of a lift leg with a round pad atop them. The pad on top of the cylinder normally gets worn out and still use metal on metal, which is not the point of the pad. But in my time at the shop, they have never been replaced. I've watched it damage customer vehicles. Also, improper use of this lift cannon will cause lots of damage to vehicles too, because on certain occasions, we'll lift a car just using the top pads with no cylinders to increase the pad's height. Under certain circumstances, that may be the appropriate thing to do, but normally once it's set up like that, it's used like that all day due to the main laziness of the operating crew. The main portion of the lift leg sits higher than this configuration, meaning if the crew sets the pads under the pinch welds or the frame of a vehicle, the legs will come up and hit the rocker panels, side skirts, door panels, etc., and crunch them. There's an unnamed man with a 2020-ish Kia Telluride that has permanent damage to his driver's side door due to this issue. The plastic bottom portion of the door was split or cracked, and the door was slightly offset from its factory position. Thankfully for the crew at this time, this issue did not have any effect on the operation of the door of the vehicle, but who knows what prolonged use of this damaged door could cause, whether it's hinge failure or electrical failure. That could spell bad news for the driver and be long out of the statute of limitations on what our brand can do. So, for a second, I'm going to take a detour, and we're going to see if I can find a 2-post rotary lift. Whoops, you didn't see that. Them daggone Facebooks anyway. I mean, sorta. So, me get this over here so it's on your screen. See this thing? These are the pads I was talking about. And this arm that makes the A here actually comes out this far, and then it extends out, and the pad's, this tall. So on occasions, this is the tallest portion up against the vehicle, while this pad is against the frame or whatever, and we go to lift the vehicle up, and this will make contact with the door, the side steps, or etc. first, and most people just keep going, which is really, really kind of them. I mean, you can almost kind of see it here, but that A will rub right up against the car, and no one does anything about them. And then I'm going to explain in a minute the other lifts that we have. They have this kind of setup where it's a pad with ears that fold. So keep that in mind when I go back to my document here. Bay 2, 3, and 4 all share a similar design, which is a flat metal ear at the end of the lift legs. They can fold either a shorter position or a larger position. Fold either a shorter portion or larger portion of metal for lifting from taller places, such as the frame operated. Wow, I can't fucking talk. For lifting from taller places, such as the frame, as opposed to the pinch welds. However, Bay 3's lift, labeled in Sharpie as John's Lift, received an annual inspection sticker from the district manager, even though the lift's locking mechanism has been suboptimal for a long time. Sometimes the locks on the driver's side of the assembly of the lift will not release when the corresponding lever is pulled that would normally release these locks. This is because the locking mechanism is held together by a wire that looks no stronger than a bike brake line, and just as useful too. Despite that, our techs managed a way to temporarily solve the problem. This problem was made aware to the district manager at the time of the inspection, and he asked, "But does it work right now?" Implying that he doesn't care what happens before or after the inspection is completed, because presumably that's no longer his problem. Now, 7 months later, when Bay 3's lift is used and the car is raised and worked on, you can hear the unsettling sound of what sounds like the lock release failing. And when the work is completed and the car needs to be released, you must have one tech operate the release normally so that the passenger side can lower, and you must have an additional tech pull the lock release wire manually from the driver's side so that that side can lower. Otherwise, only one side of the lift will lower, and that'll cause a catastrophe if not monitored. And then Bay 5 is a drive-on lift. I have no particular concerns about the safety of this lift, but it has a few unique pieces due to it being an alignment lift. Like there's steering pads in the front, rollers in the rear, so that you can check certain things with your alignment. These portions are less than optimal and could use attention. This was noted for the district manager, but nothing has been done or even mentioned. And I don't know if I'm going to get a picture of that pulled up, but the main thing is it's a circular pad, and it has two little ears on it, and there's supposed to be a pin that goes inside of it, and that pin's supposed to have a ground wire that's attached to the lift so that you don't lose the pin, and also it's a literal ground wire so that any electrical discharge is dissipated, and it's not connected, which means that alignments will be improper sometimes, and you run the risk of losing that pin and all the other problems that can have. But it's all right. I'll live with that, I guess. And then the other bay is Bay 6. It's a drive-on style lift like the alignment lift, but it doesn't have any of the fancy stuff in the front for the front end alignment, no laser lines, no pads. It's literally just a drive-on lift. Both of the drive-on style lifts have hydraulic/pneumatic scissor lifts positioned at the front of the rear of the lift for fronts and rears of the vehicle, so the car may be suspended for wheels being removed, rotated brake service, etc. The alignment lift is perfectly fine, but Bay 6's doesn't even work. The air lines are damaged, broken, or removed, and to make the entire lift go up or down, you have to use the hydraulic system to lift the main lift too. The alignment lift in Bay 5 works perfectly fine, but Bay 6's alignment lift has a major air leak. When you turn the main air on to that bay, you can hear it coming out of the lift clear as day. It makes the lift raise and lower very slowly, and it cannot be safe for prolonged use. Despite that, the district manager put a sticker on that. The GST, which is called the General Service Technician, before me, put swastikas in many places around the shop because he thought he was funny or whatever that means. But I'm not going to demonstrate what those are. If you actually need help looking that one up, you're going to have to Google that one yourself, and you're going to be stuck with the consequences. I'm not going to be putting that on my YouTube video. But there are swastikas everywhere. But the district manager sees these and does nothing about them. Some of it written in entire crayon, the rest in Sharpie. The symbols drawn with the crayon would be simple enough to remove. The Sharpie is less so, but very easy still, even if just covered up with paint, paper, tape, etc. There is one on each of the main support beams in the front shop with at least one swastika on it, and then each lift has at least one swastika on it. Multiple of our suspension part boxes in the back of the shop have swastikas on it. The catwalks have swastikas on their supports. The walls have swastikas on them. They're everywhere, and they're not hard to find. The district manager is aware of these anti-Semitic symbols and chooses to have done nothing about them. The regional manager has been there so far once in a year, and he has to have seen them as well. We had a transmission jack that was sent to the shop, and it arrived damaged. The district manager was made aware, and luckily one of our techs was able to weld together the broken portion and made the transmission jack usable for short-term use. Still, receiving a broken product is unacceptable for an established map shop making millions and billions of dollars and having so many certifications and trainings and, important individuals and people who are in and out of the shop, and these are tools, and, we're talking about a transmission. This is a 2,000-pound item sometimes, normally less, of course, but high-end. Even then, hundreds of pounds of metal with normally some kind of fluid in it, even if you try to drain it all out. But you put a transmission jack under a transmission and you have to trust it, except it was broken once, and whether or not it breaks again, you're still scared the whole time. But if it does break again and that falls, you're not catching it. It weighs twice, if not 3, sometimes 4 times more than the person operating the jack, and they are not going to catch it, and if they do, they're going to be seriously injured. I mean, people die from that kind of stuff. So that's not the kind of thing you just play games with. But, let me continue. Despite that, since the transmission jack was still functional, nothing was done. And one day the repair may fail, someone's life will be lost due to the ignorance of the district manager. This isn't even what he has done to one of the employees of these establishments. Anyone who called him out on his affair with a female store manager in his district was fired, and the employees of one of his stores were all fired without notice because he said he was trying to fix the store. And then someone who is going to become relevant later, we'll name him Shane, was put into the store manager position there with limited crew. My brother was sent down there for a day despite only having 3 employees at his own establishment, meaning the district manager's complete disregard for employees caused great stress for 2 different locations at the same time, countless hardships for all the laid-off employees in his wake, and for that day, I'm sure there was many upset customers. I was there in one store, experiencing and dealing with one of them, and I'm sure that there was many upset customers at the other one too. In light of firing the assistant manager from my location, they put in place a new policy that states that any unnamed automotive shop that makes less than $1 million annually will not have an assistant manager. Instead, they will be called a guest care specialist, and they will be appointed. This worker will have all the duties of the assistant manager and none of the benefits, no bonuses, healthcare assistance, raises, etc. Just $1 more an hour than a general service technician, which is the absolute bottom of the totem pole. They hired my brother into this position. My brother thinks he's getting a raise and a bonus on top of his flat rate as a tech. At first, that is what the district manager even told him. Then when they finally put him into the position, he realized a very short paycheck. After consultation, he realized he was lied to and that he lost his flat rate. This means no incentive for getting any work done. So, just to quickly explain what flat rate is, you still get your hourly in a position where you have flat rate. He was a technician before. That's a position that has this flat rate bonus, flat rate incentive, if you will. And what that means is you make your wage, which I believe for him was like $16 an hour, and then for each job that you do has a certain amount of predetermined hours to it, and those will go on top with the incentive rate of pay, the flat rate. So if you got 0.5 hours for an oil change and your flat rate was $30, you just made $15 extra for your oil change. Also, I don't know if it's going to be brought up here, but one of the rules for them was that you have to meet a certain amount of hours to get paid too. So you won't get that $15 extra the hour for that one oil change if that's all that you do. You need to have, I think, over 18 flat rate hours, which isn't impossible for a normal work week for one technician. Sometimes it's very hard to do with two, especially at that location with the issues and hardships that it goes through and how customers come and go because it's an awful establishment and all. But hypothetically, it's a good idea because you get incentivized to put more work in to make more hours, and you're supposed to be able to do it faster than the predetermined amount of hours. And thankfully, that predetermined amount of hours is helpful too, because then when you get charged your flat rate amount of hours, it's like uniform. Anywhere, especially if it's a flat rate, is going to charge you 0.5 for a belt. And even if it takes 10 minutes, they're going to charge you that half hour's worth of labor, and you're going to get charged that price. And they're going to make that money. And that's the idea, is if you can do a transmission in a day, but it takes multiple days of flat rate according to your pay, that just made you a lot of money. And that's the whole point, is those flat rates are made for people to literally not know what they're doing about cars, look it up, research it, get the tools together from somewhere local, not just like, spend weeks getting all your stuff around, but you get all your stuff together, and then with no prior knowledge, you follow a guide and you figure it out. That's what the flat rate is made for. That's why it takes half an hour to do a belt. Anyone with any sense towards car, belt is a very simple thing to work on, and normally it's got a tensioner or something of the sort, and you just have to manipulate that so that it relieves tension on the belt, and you just swap it out, and then you place the tensioner back into its appropriate position, and you've just replaced a belt. It's terribly simple. But that's an example. My brother, making his flat rate hours and his normal hourly pay, he was making 4-digit checks. We're talking $1,000, sometimes more or less-ish. It was good money. That was why he was there. That's what kept food on the table, what kept his cars fixed, stuff like that. But we'll move back to what I was typing out here. And that is, I was the GST, an hourly position, and reminder, that means general service technician. He was a guest care specialist, which they started to call GCS, I think, and that was just hard because of the GST, GCS. You just can't really spout that out that fast. But he was a guest care specialist, an hourly position, and the store manager was a salary position based on hours present on the clock. So we could all sit and do nothing, and there would be nothing lost on our checks. However, my brother has a family to support, and he needs to make more money. He followed the district manager until finally he was put back into the technician position. Then I'll come back to that in a second. There was no incentive for anyone because my GST position was an hourly position. I made flat rate incentive. If I made 18 hours of flat rate, I would get paid $2 additional for every hour of flat rate I made. So if I did get, let's just say, 18 hours of flat rate, I really only got $36 extra on my paycheck. I would pay $36 extra to not do 18 hours worth of oil changes, because that's the other thing, is as a GST, I'm a general service technician. I do general services. I do not replace your alternator. I do not change your engine out. I don't do any of that. I do oil changes, brakes, tires at best. And especially if there is a technician available, they get actual flat rate. They want those bigger jobs for that bigger money. So I wasn't making any money to do that. So at 0.5 an hour to get 18 hours of flat rate, I would have to do 36 oil changes as well. So I'd get $2 extra for every oil change, which is garbage, useless. After a few weeks of working on reasonable hours, fighting with overtime approval, and our constantly revised schedules, we finally got a new hire. And again, going to elaborate on this. We're talking not just a few weeks, we're talking months. It was pretty much the whole summer where me, my brother, and the store manager were the 3 employees that had to operate this establishment from 7:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So 6 days a week, and somehow we can only get 40 hours. Now, I don't know why I'm bothering to do this, but let me like break out some notes here. Okay, so we have 40 hours per person. There's 3 people. And then with a break, let's just say it's 8 to 7 because that's with a break. So 8 to 7. That's 11 hours a day. We have 6 days. So we have 66 hours that need to be operated. We need to have 2 people in the store for both security and safety reasons. You cannot have one person alone in the store operating a lift. You cannot have a person alone in the store playing with the money. You cannot have a person alone in the store, period. For any amount of reasons, whether it's a car falls or someone needs liability or someone gets robbed or killed or whatever, like you need someone there as a witness or, to help. So we definitely need a manager there. So our first guy here, this is store manager. This is Bro. And this is Jake. All right, so this guy is here every day but Wednesday. So that's 5 days a week. And then I'm there every day but Monday, most of the time. Sometimes I was also there Monday, so I'm going to even throw that in there. And then my brother, he had to run the store on Wednesdays, and he normally had, I think, Thursdays off. So again, do like that because sometimes he had to come in on his Thursdays. But store manager never had to take his day off and work. So, yeah. And then all of this is overtime over 40 by 15 to 26 hours, I believe that is, right? Yeah. And that overtime would sometimes not get approved, so we would have just worked for free, which is gotta be illegal, to be honest with you. But we would get overtime. Our overtime wouldn't be approved sometimes, which was awesome. It was really incentivizing on top of not having an incentive to even go to work in the first place. What would have been better is maybe just giving everyone like an appointed 2 days off for this period of time. Like we just didn't open on Saturdays. Saturdays wasn't that important to begin with anyway. That would have taken it down to 44 and 55 for the week. That would have been a lot better. The other thing is, we figured out the math, and our store manager was getting something like, oh man, I forget, but it wound up being about 15 an hour. So let's reverse engineer that real quick. So 15 an hour, 55-hour weeks, 4 in a month. Yeah, so I think he was getting like $2,800 a check or something like that. He was making $2,800 a month. So $2,800 a month, divide that by 4. So we calculated that to be $700 a week, which is a good pay. That's $300 more a week than I made. A little bit less than what a good week would make for the technician. But we break that down to the 55 he's making a day, and he works 5 days a week. So he's making $140 a day, and he's working 11 hours every day. He was making $12 an hour, $12.75 an hour, and that's a salary job to be the store manager. That's not fair to him at all. I wouldn't wish that on him in hell. I don't even know how to explain that. But that's how much money he was making, and when we told him that, he was not very impressed. That when we finally did the math, he's had that job for 7 years, and I guess he just never bothered to do the math. I don't know. That doesn't make much sense to me, but whatever. Also, I don't know if it's in here, but while we're talking about his wages, the other incentive for him is the more money he made, the more commission he got back. He'd get a certain amount of bonus, basically, especially based on if we spent too much money or not. So we never got anything new. We never got chairs. We never got like tools. We never had any paint done. We never had anything fun happen because, like, the district manager would put out events and be like, oh, okay, go over the AutoZone, buy cans of red, white, and blue spray paint and spray paint some tires red, white, and blue for Independence Day. What a great idea. And he'd be like, no, I need my money for my bonus. I can't be spending money like that or I won't get my bonus. It's coming out of my bonus if I go and buy that. Okay? Fucking suck your bonus, dude. Like, fuck off. But let's continue. We'll see if that comes up or not. We finally got a new hire. This new hire was Shane's brother. Let's call him John. I was told to my face by the district manager that I was going to fill the position of the guest care specialist. The position that was given up by my brother for me, that was fine. That was a raise nonetheless, and I would no longer be bottom of the totem pole. That would cross-train me in the management position and keep me involved in the internal workforce. I had new hope, I had morale, and then the new guy, John, gets accidentally hired into my upcoming position as a guest care specialist. That was suspicious. Then I was told once again to my face that it was an accident, they'll get it worked out, and I'll be getting my raise and position and keys in no time. Weeks passed, and then the new guy asked the district manager during a monthly visit, when do I go down to the GST? The district manager told John that no one was moving anywhere and that he wasn't maintaining a position. That ruined my experience here at the job, and my brother wasn't very happy with that either, nor was he going to get told what to do by a brand new hire, so he quit for pastures new. And he still works at that new job. This is like almost a year later at this point. He's doing good. He makes more than he did. So good for him. Through all of those hardships, they hired a technician in place of my brother instead of moving me up to a technician position. So in the year I've been here, 3 people have quit or been fired, and I've never moved a position. And this has changed, actually. I don't know if I listed here, because I did do like an update, but that new technician in place of my brother also got fired. And they managed to pull a technician out of the other store to come over and take my position instead of moving me up and then putting someone in the service position, the bitch position. I was the bitch this whole time. So, in the year I've been here, 3 people have quit or been fired. I've never moved a position, received any monetary benefit or assistance, and have been lied to countless times. Then I am forced to spend my days in an unsafe, unsanitary work environment. I have more seniority than the guest care specialist / assistant manager and the new technician now, and I can't tell them what to do. I have more time in my current tenure at the establishment than the new technician, and I can't tell them what to do. Exactly what I was saying. I am still the bottom of the pecking order. If anyone thinks Monroe or their associated brands owes you anything, you're wrong. And if you think you owe my definitely unnamed establishment that I haven't accidentally named a total of twice now, or their associated brands anything, you're wrong. And if this unassociated brand and their associated brands think you owe them something, they are sorely mistaken. If anything, they owe the employees everything, but their corporate greed will not let them make any amends. It's not worth begging, it's not worth keeping secrets, it's not worth whistleblowing. I'm doing this for free and to vent my frustrations, and will do nothing to help the resounding issue with the company, and that's fine, I suppose. When you work at the unnamed auto service center, you realize that your life is not, and that the life you used to live is over. When you work at unnamed auto service center, you realize that you're getting paid minimum wage, the same if not less than the patty flippers at McDonald's. Put your life on the line, work with subpar tools, suboptimal lifts, unsanitary environments, unsafe workspaces, get covered in carcinogenic oils, and more. At Unknown Establishment, we pride ourselves on being the worst human beings around and having a life that's more miserable than yours. Okay, so this might be the update. We'll see how this goes. Since I drafted this document, more impeccable occasions have been arriving. This is in no order, just off my memory. First, the store manager passed an inspection for someone, paid the $21 ticket, and received an ounce of marijuana for his efforts. Of course, he immediately stored it in his toolbox until close, and then took it home. So there's no evidence of this other than the courtesy inspection in his name with a car that he doesn't own. Other than that, at least 1 car a week has been turned down because he doesn't want to do the labor, or 1 car a week gets turned down because he doesn't want to do the paperwork. 1 car a week gets passed through inspection because he doesn't want to do the work or the paperwork, or he doesn't bother to do his job right, and it's been a couple of weeks. Then, the aforementioned John gets transferred to lead another store, and a new person is hired to take his place. Who? None other than his girlfriend, of course. Our district manager was aware of this at the time of her hire, but because he loves scheming and lying, he claims ignorance once more to a problem that he's caused. And again, this is a problem because they moved John to this other store, and instead of putting me in a new position after a year, again, I've been through 20 people, they put They moved a whole other new hire into that position. And let's see what we're doing here. I had something else I was going to say. Oh, and then they decided before John was totally transferred, he's working shifts kind of here and there, getting acquainted with the new store, but the schedules are kind of iffy. Whatever, work in progress. He damages his arm with a transmission, as a matter of fact. And while we're at it, how about we just blame it on the faulty transmission jack? Now, he goes to the hospital, and then he leaves because it's too busy and he's not making money, and he feels fine, so he doesn't need to go to the hospital. But unnamed work establishment, needs a medical document that clears him to continue to work after an injury such as that, because they presumed that the arm was broken or sprained. And that would involve a drug and alcohol test. Well, and that's policy, okay? Almost every place that I hear of now, they will submit you to a drug and alcohol test at the moment of someone being injured, whether it was you or you inadvertently injuring someone else, or there's an accident or an insurance claim needs to be made because you hit someone's car, etc. They need to check and make sure you weren't intoxicated under any circumstances. But he didn't want to do that, so he turned it down, and therefore he was fired. And again, despite that, his girlfriend gets hired. And instead of all of that affecting their reputation of someone that they don't know, and my reputation going up because I know what happened, I stayed in my bitch position and they hired someone into the new position that was open. Well, let's keep going. What's the problem? Well, John's girlfriend, let's call her Candy. She has a fiery temper and is unskilled in the automotive industry. From vocab to physical experience, hers is very limited. John told the district manager that she was qualified to do brakes, oil changes, more, and she is not. Now, to be clear, not only did John say this, but she herself discussed it, and when she was there with us, she would talk about how she did a radiator on an Audi on the side of the road, and she was messing with the timing on it and all this fun stuff. And first of all, you're not doing a radiator on an Audi on the side of the road. There's so many clips and freaky electronics, and the radiator literally is has an inch or two of space in there before you get to the front clip. So 98% of the time, you're going to have to pull the whole front clip off to be able to get your hands around the radiator, get lines off, unplug whatever fancy electronics are going on, because this is an Audi after all, and then get it out. Not something you're doing on the side of Highway 81. But also, frequently, I had to teach this person righty-tighty and lefty-loosey, and frequently, I spent long nights because of their inability to schedule appointments, work with customers, work with their employees, have any morale, or anything like that. They sucked. Just period. I had to tell them how to do oil changes. They had to learn how to do brakes. They didn't know nothing. Perfect for guest care. Perfect for a general service technician to be able to learn. But no, that's fine. So, also, I bring up here something that apparently was wrong or maybe screwed up, but the district manager seemed to be planning something, because if you remember a while ago, we mentioned a man named Shane. Shane runs a store in the district. They were putting John, his brother, into another store in the district, and then because of how things were going, it looked like John's girlfriend was going to run my store. And that would have been 4 out of the 5 stores in the district were ran by the same people in the family, which I think was totally their district manager's plan, because they're going to do what they can to help each other and lift the business up inadvertently. But it seems that went wrong when he didn't want to do that DUI test. Let's see. So this is me kind of cherry picking, but since then, John has decided he doesn't like the unnamed store, which goes against the district manager's scheme of having in the family being the individual heads of each store. I can guarantee that was his goal, having Candy lead this store, having her boyfriend lead the other store, and Shane, his brother, lead an additional store. That would lead them to wanting to help each other and only help the district manager's numbers, right? Well, how about Shane's inability to work at his own store? That's right, Shane barely even shows up to work at his own establishment. Instead, his poor guest care specialist works 7 days a week for 3 weeks out of the month alone, no technician, no general service tech, and no store manager. My brother was sent there before he quit, the new tech was sent there, and I was sent there. When everyone went down, everyone did actual hard labor on a car, expecting it to reflect on their labor hours. However, when the job was cashed out, the guest care specialist put his work down into their own name and not the technician's. Now, none of our techs want to go back. I believe I bring it up here, but I'll describe it in my own experience. I was sent down there, and I worked on a popular rental car company's vehicle, and I had to do, they were replacing the ball joint and the tie rod, which I believe, nope, they just did the ball joint. I did not do the heavy lifting in that. I took the bolts off, I got everything ready. All I had was wrenches. That's all he gave me was a pile of wrenches. I got everything off in about 10-20 minutes. Then he came back, asked how I was doing. I was trying to figure out how I was going to get the ball joint out. He went and bought a tool, and he did it himself. He ruined the ball joint and blamed it on me, so I'm not coming back. And I'm glad that I didn't get it come out of my check or out of insurance or something, because then I would have totally blew my lid. Not only that, but days before, I was sent down there because it was just the guest care specialist there alone. I worked on a rental car vehicle, and they ignorantly already rented to another customer before being out of service. Yeah, so that's a fun thing too. When I showed up, people from this rental company were talking to the guest care specialist saying, "Oh yeah, we need the car, our customers rented it." No the fuck they haven't. It's still in the shop. We haven't fixed it yet. We didn't tell you it was ready. Why did you just rent it out? And so they went and left and tried to accommodate this customer that needs it. And we worked on their car. So, despite that, it needed a new front wheel bearing. Oh, maybe that's what it was. Since I have more mechanical capabilities than him and more technician skills than my manager knows, the first thing I did was looked up the procedure on my YouTube and then all data. Both suggested using a hub bearing puller, but we didn't have one at the store. However, we did have a press. So I decided to remove the steering knuckle with the bearing in it. I wasn't sure where tools were, and I was handed some ratcheting wrenches. So by hand, with these wrenches, I removed both bolts from the top of the knuckle where it locks onto the shocks, and removed the castle nuts from the tie rod and the ball joint. I learned from my dad over a decade ago to just hit the side of the knuckle with a hammer until the tie rod or ball joint just pops out. I did that with the tie rod, and then I tried to do the same to the ball joint with no avail. I found a dead blow and hit the bottom of the threads a couple of times, that therefore did not try and damage the threads, also to no avail. So I asked the guest care specialist what to do, and he ordered ball joint removal tools from AutoZone. Then he used those tools to disconnect the ball joint. Once it was disconnected from the knuckle, as I watched him do this damage, I told him, "Dude, you ruined that ball joint," and all he did was just say, "Yeah," and then we moved on. I figured, he's going to get a replacement ball joint after I'm gone, whatever. Then he went to the press and fought with the removal process for hours. At that point, I had to leave to go back to my original shop to help unbury them because they only had one person there, while I was sent to go work at this other shop that only had one person there. A few days later, I find out that they have blamed me for ruining the threads in the tie rod and the ball joint. Pretty hard to do since I didn't do anything to do with that. But as long as it doesn't affect my checks, they just need a blame scapegoat, sure. However, I'm certainly not going back there, so that store has sealed their coffin. Today, at the time I'm writing this, Candy has brought her puppy from home to work. I love pets and animals, but our establishment is not the place for pets or animals. They are an additional liability, likely some kind of OSHA or insurance concern. Regardless, it is certainly unprofessional. If I'm paying someone $174 to $204 an hour to replace anything, to do work on my car, I don't want to be assisted by someone holding their puppy while they're at work. Oh, got some spelling errors in here, huh? Well, this is just some rambling, but today is 3 days for my birthday. I should be happy. I'm trying to be happy. Even my birthday party was stressful. I hope I get some amount of gifts that can uplift me. Half of my wish list is car parts, mechanics tools, go figure. Our new tech got fired, another was hired and then fired, and then it's been 2 weeks since the tech has been here last. Now we are involved with other stores' politics, like having our managers relieve other managers at stores leaving our store in the dust, like asking for techs to come over in exchange for what we did and getting spat in the face of. I've done blower motors, brake jobs, tire jobs, calipers, alternators, batteries, alignments, oil changes, inspections, courtesy inspections, tie rods, ball joints, control arms, off the books works, electrical works, organizing the shop, flat repairs, customer service, and other manager duties like tire count and checking customers in and out, and so much more. For all but minimum wage, no flat rate, no commission, just anger and depression as a general service technician. I am so burnt out, but I'm never allowed to be burnt out. I'm never allowed reprieve. Tomorrow is one of my 2 days off, and I'm going to be at the shop anyway because I didn't get to do what I wanted to do to my car today. I need to do some rust repairs so that I can pass a PA state inspection so I can stop being illegal and gambling my license, money, and job just so I can be at my job that doesn't give a lick about me. I have to pay for my family and friends. I have bills and mouths to feed, home of my own to maintain, cars of my own to maintain, but no one cares. And that wraps up the document. To this day, since I quit that job, I have not been back, and I dropped in a couple of times to say hi. I got a flat repair done, stuff like that, but I've not been back to fix that rust work or nothing. It's been the way that it is. I still don't have an inspection on that car, and that sucks, but whatever. They didn't seem to care. They still don't care. They won't care when I put this on the internet. They won't care when I put half of this into their reviews on Google, which apparently is very important to them. So when I started this job, I was so happy and grateful to be in a mechanic job. I was going to be a mechanic just like my dad, like my brother. I was going to be the coolest kid ever. It wasn't until almost the very end that someone taught me how to weld, and it wasn't even who you would think it was. I thought maybe it would be like my brother or, something like that. But no. After multiple people coming and going, it was the last two people that were hired and then promptly fired that taught me anything to do with welding. The first guy kind of just let me alone with the welder, gave me a few tips, and then just let me weld. The other guy just sat and watched me like I was his kid. Either way worked great. I learned how to weld decent enough that it came in handy one day when I welded a bolt to another bolt and got a radiator out of a BMW. So that was pretty cool. I also welded my own exhaust together after I bought my new car that's now still uninspected. Go figure. But yeah, those two people did it, and they aren't half bad. I don't really hate everyone there, like I said in the document, but also if they all died, I wouldn't care. Let's see what I got here. Yeah, I get that it's kind of whiny, but it was true, literally. I wasn't allowed to sit down. I wasn't allowed to whine about my job. It was always, oh, you should be grateful for your job. You should be happy you have a job, blah, blah, blah. And it was fucking wanted me to punch him in the fucking head because everyone else that I was around could complain every day about how everyone's awful, how their job's awful, and I had to sit there and listen to them gossip about other workers and other managers. But the second I said anything about it, I don't have room to talk. They don't have room to talk. They're better than me, blah, blah, blah. And that's the kind of stuff that'll drive a man to be a little wild in the brain. I was literally coming home some days and just picking fights with people. Like, I'd pick fights with people online. I'd pick fights with people in my Discord. I'd pick fights with people in person, like my girlfriend or my dad. I was just mad. It made me mad to be at work. And it made me mad to go home and feel miserable and stupid. It was crazy. So I gave right up on that. I applied for another job. I got an orientation. I got a start date. Gave my 2 weeks. Started this new job. And that's going to be a whole other situation. At an unnamed Tex-Mex fast food restaurant is the general way that they describe it, I assume. But that's going to be a whole other thing. And even though I only worked there for like 3 weeks, I have almost as much bitching as I do at Monroe. It really made me regret leaving my mechanic job for it. But now I work at an unnamed meat plant. Do with that as you will. I'm not telling you the name until, I don't know, probably inevitably gets a fucking listen video about it and I slip up a name. Who knows? But not intentionally anyway. And I'm actually pretty impressed. It's so much better than most of the other jobs I had. The closest that I've had to such an experience like this was my first job at McDonald's. And again, I still kind of regret leaving at this point, especially if I was going to get minimum wage and $15 an hour. I could have worked my other job, had like 8 years of experience under my belt at this point. Had a position of power, had a position where people are helping me. Like I guess not helping me, but respecting me. But no, I had to screw that all up. I mean, the only thing is I have tools and I have ins and outs with mechanics and those relations, and I have a lot of experience with that. That's cool. And then I also like that I know the secrets of this other fast food establishment. So it's not all bad, but it makes you wonder sometimes. I mean, especially since none of my jobs I have friends with, like that mechanic shop, the unnamed Tex-Mex fast food restaurant. I have no lasting friends from them, so it would have been no different than if I would have just stayed at McDonald's too. I think that's it. Like I said, I didn't get to yell, and that probably isn't going to impress anyone because people are going to pull this up on their Roku and play it at their unnamed bar and grill, or play it at home, or ironically play it at a random Airbnb or whatever, and they're going to find out that at no point do I kick and scream and yell and cry. But whatever. Yeah, I don't think I can think of anything else that's stupid right now, but let me just double check my phone to be sure. I got some notes and stuff. No. Huh. No. No. Oh. Nope. No. Oh, wait, what's this? Oh. Here's a letter that I wrote to my district manager that never got sent. Hey, district manager, can you explain to me why you're such a loser? Is the intent of my store just to filter to see who will put up with the ignorant corporate policies and inappropriate behavior of our fellow companymen? The amount of obscene stuff I've heard from each and every one of our employees regarding some of our female customers and predatory behavior over the women they see on their phones are very disturbing. But given that I am the only one with an ounce of respect, none of which is for you, I will continue to indulge them in their horrible behavior. As of July 30th, around 4 p.m., store manager put himself in as an inspection despite it being a different customer, and in exchange the customer gave the store manager an ounce of marijuana that now sits at his house. You can probably smell it in the top drawer of his toolbox, honestly. And then in the 9 months that I've been at this establishment, I have seen many cars get passed for an inspection despite having a failure of some sorts, all because he doesn't want to do the paperwork or the actual labor. Admittedly, neither do I. On a day where there is no technician available, there shouldn't be any flat rate, medium-high labor work done. That should all be up to the tech that gets paid for his work. The amount of work that I get as a GST and paid nothing for, and the guest care specialist also gets paid for, I'm talking oil pans, leaf springs, etc. You continue to put pressure on a store under too much pressure to operate, and it reduces the morale of the employees, which reduces workflow. It won't be long before you either drive it into the ground or drive all the good workers out in place for slaves. John intends to leave his position after his court date is up, returning back to his home location, so in the process of tarnishing my work relationship with all of my fellow coworkers and any corporate entity, including yourself, when I am just the person you need running this store. I'm analytical, I care about the quality of the work being brought to customer, I literally enjoy doing certain paperwork, but no, that would work way too well for you to have thought of. It's been a great displeasure working for you, and I hope that your life may improve in the future. As a postscriptum, I'm going to attach my Facebook post regarding my time at the unnamed auto service center. And then I quotated the whole thing that I just read to you. Okay, and then this is the first half of it where I'm like, oh, I hate this awful job, blah, blah, blah. this is a personal gripe at the moment, but when we got a AC refresh machine, so it would evacuate the AC Freon and put new Freon in so that your AC would blow cooler, or if you didn't have AC working at all or you just did a service, it relieves the pressure, so you need to put pressure back in the system, etc. But I needed it in my car, and everyone else tried out the new AC machine, but when I asked, they did it too many times in a day and it wasn't good enough, and I was never going to get it done. And I was like, okay, you guys can just have free $500 services, but I have to pay. And then I purchased some tire plugs from an automotive parts distributor. The kind that you get at like the gas station basically is the same thing. I had them screwed to the wall because the way that it worked was I have small toolboxes, but I did have a pack of screws and a drill. And they didn't want my stuff all scattered around the floor looking like a mess that needed to be cleaned. So anything with a hole or a hook or anything that came off a hanger at the store or whatever, I just hung to the wall. And that was fine all the way up until I put up some posters that were totally friendly, no inappropriate images, no inappropriate language. It was literally race cars and their drivers. And I got told that if the general manager comes in, I'm going to get in big trouble. And I told them they can suck my fucking dick. The other thing is, but in this case, what I was talking about is I had these tire plugs on the wall, and they are not technically up to map standard, but they're my possessions, my tools, from my toolbox. And they can be used for my cars or my friend's cars, or if someone drops by and needs something quick and they aren't going to do it on the shop, I can give them the map unapproved fix for $5 or for free or for 5 minutes of their time, etc. But they ripped them off the wall, leaving the screw intact, damaging the product, and put it into my toolbox. So it says here, I get into work and my tire plugs are ripped off the wall because apparently if any of them are found in, at, or around the shop, we'll get in big trouble. Personally, my personal possessions, no matter the sizes or uses of it, are my damn possessions. And if I can have tire plugs hung on the wall, are we sure that we need an ounce of marijuana in a toolbox? Okay, so that's it. That's actually it. I won't bother you guys anymore. At this point, I'm back to when I worked my security job, which I kind of forget because there was nothing to complain about. That was also a quality item. So that's the video for today. It's not going to be edited. Any of this free time is just going to be in here. It's another classic hour-long video, pretty much. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike. Comment down below whether your job sucks or not. And I don't know. Peace out.